Silent Vengeance. Commander Alara Hayes stood at the viewport of her small scout ship, staring at the massive Vorax warship that hung in space before her. Her dark uniform was worn but immaculate, a remnant from her days in Earth's Special Forces. Behind her, the ship's minimal systems hummed quietly, keeping her hidden among the debris field. 3 weeks ago, the Vorax Imperium had appeared in Earth's orbit without warning. Humanity had only recently developed faster-than-light technology, barely stepping onto the galactic stage. The Vorax, with their crystalline technology and biological ships, had seemed like gods descending from the heavens. They came bearing gifts and promises of knowledge. Earth's governments, dazzled by the advanced technology, welcomed them. Dr. Marcus Hayes, Alara's husband and Earth's leading xenobiologist, had been among the first to greet them. He never returned from their flagship. The Vorax claimed there had been an unfortunate accident during cultural exchange. They offered compensation, technological blueprints, resource rights to an uninhabited system. Earth's governments, afraid of angering their powerful new allies, accepted. Alara did not. Her communication device chimed softly. On the screen appeared the face of Admiral Chen, one of the few in Earth Command who still spoke with her. "You're committing treason, Commander," Chen said without preamble. "Return to Earth immediately." "They took him, Admiral," Alara replied. Her voice was calm, emotionless. Those who knew her recognized this as dangerous. "The Vorax are lying. I found evidence in their communication protocols. The Imperium controls 57 star systems, Hayes. They have a fleet that could turn Earth to glass. We cannot afford to antagonize them over one man." "Then it's good I'm acting alone." Alara's fingers danced over her console, severing the connection. She checked her weapons one last time, a modified pulse rifle, several explosive devices designed to work against crystalline technology, and the neural disruptor she'd stolen from a Vorax outpost. Not enough to take on an empire, but enough for tonight. Alara's ship slipped silently toward the Vorax vessel, utilizing the stealth technology she'd modified using their own designs. The irony wasn't lost on her, using their arrogance against them. Inside the Vorax ship, Supreme Commander Zix Farl stood before the Imperium Council's holographic projections. His translucent skin shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that indicated his confidence. "The human integration proceeds as planned," he reported. "Their governments have accepted our explanation for the scientist's disappearance. They're eager for our technology." "And the specimen?" asked Counselor Tella Moore, her crystalline eyes glinting. "Dr. Hayes continues to resist our procedures, but his physiology is fascinating. Human adaptability exceeds our projections. If we can harness this trait, it could revolutionize our bioships." "Excellent," the head counselor's voice rumbled. "The humans will serve the Imperium well. Their planet is resource-rich, and their population will provide ample subjects for our research." The alarm klaxons cut through their conversation. Red emergency lighting bathed the command center. "What is happening?" demanded Zix Farl. "Security breach in the lower detention level," reported a subordinate, confusion evident in his voice patterns. "One intruder. Systems identify it as human." "Impossible," Zix Farl scoffed. "Humans don't have technology capable of breaching our defenses." On the detention level, Alara moved like a shadow through corridors lined with crystalline growth. Two Vorax guards lay unconscious behind her. She had no quarrel with the rank-and-file soldiers. Not yet. The neural disruptor had worked perfectly, temporarily shutting down their consciousness without killing them. The Vorax, for all their advancement, had a critical weakness in their nervous system's connection to their technology. She reached the cell block, disabled the security systems using codes she'd decrypted from their communications, and found her target. Cell 217. When the door slid open, Marcus looked up from the examination table where he was strapped down. His face was gaunt, marked with the evidence of painful experiments, but his eyes widened in recognition. "The larva's house." "Later," she said, cutting through his restraints with a precision laser. "Can you walk?" He nodded, steadying himself as he stood. "They've been experimenting on human adaptability. There are others, Alara, they've taken people from other species for their research." Alara hesitated, her mission parameters shifting in her mind. "Where?" "Adjacent blocks, dozens of them. Some have been here for years." The commander accessed the facility schematics she downloaded. "Change of plans, we're taking more than just you." As alarms blared through the ship, Alara and Marcus moved through the detention block, releasing prisoners from a dozen different species. The spindly Kelter, gaseous Navidians in containment suits, reptilian Sarth, and others Alara didn't recognize. "Why help us?" asked a Kelter female, her compound eyes studying Alara. "Because on Earth we have a saying," Alara replied, handing her a weapon. "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." Supreme Commander Zix Farl watched in disbelief as security feeds showed the human female leading a growing crowd of test subjects through his ship. How had one primitive breached their defenses? How was she interfacing with their technology? "Lock down all escape routes," he ordered. "Deploy the Sentinel drones." "Sir," his second-in-command said nervously, "the human is using our own security protocols against us. She's locked us out of multiple systems." "Impossible," Zix Farl's skin flashed angry patterns. "Their species only achieved space travel a decade ago." On a lower deck, Alara accessed another terminal, uploading the virus she'd created by studying Vorax code. It wasn't elegant, but it was effective, designed to create confusion rather than destruction. "The hangar is 3 levels down," she told the gathered prisoners. "I've disabled their tracking systems, but it won't last long." "They'll pursue us," said Marcus, who moved gingerly, still recovering from his captivity. "They can't let witnesses escape." "I'm counting on it," Alara replied, her eyes cold. "Everyone deserves to know what the Vorax Imperium really is." They fought their way to the hangar, the former prisoners proving remarkably effective despite their weakened state. Years of captivity had given them intimate knowledge of Vorax weaknesses, and desperation made them fearless. Alara directed them to the transport vessels. "These ships will automatically navigate to neutral space. From there, you can contact your people." "What about you?" Marcus asked, sensing her intention. "I still have work to do." She handed him a data crystal. "Get this to Earth Command. It contains everything, their research, their plans for Earth, all of it." "The Laras." "They need to know what they're dealing with, Marcus. The Vorax didn't come to Earth in peace. This was the beginning of an invasion." Before he could protest further, Sentinel drones swarmed into the hangar, crystalline constructs with organic cores. They moved with deadly precision. "Go," Alara pushed Marcus toward the transport. "I'll cover you." As the transport ships launched, carrying the freed prisoners to safety, Alara enacted the final stage of her plan. The explosive she had placed at key points throughout the ship detonated simultaneously, not to destroy, but to disrupt the crystalline technology that formed the Vorax ship's nervous system. In the command center, Zix Farl watched helplessly as system after system failed. How? He demanded of no one in particular. How could one human do this? When the smoke cleared, Alara Hayes stood alone in the damaged hangar, surrounded by disabled Sentinel drones. She made no attempt to escape as Vorax security forces finally reached her. Supreme Commander Zix Farl personally came to confront the human who had humiliated him before the council. "You've committed an act of war," he said, his voice modulated to express maximum threat. "Your planet will pay the price for your actions." Alara looked up at him unafraid. "No, Commander, you committed the act of war when you took my husband and lied to my people. This was just the opening move." "You're one human," Zix Farl scoffed. "What do you imagine you've accomplished besides your own capture?" Alara smiled then, a cold expression that made even the Vorax commander feel uneasy. "I wanted you to know who I am," she said simply. "I wanted your face to be the last thing I saw before I activated the beacon." "Beacon?" Confusion rippled through Zix Farl's bioluminescent patterns. "Humanity isn't alone anymore, Commander. Those prisoners you've been experimenting on for years, they have families, governments, military forces, and now they all know exactly what you've been doing." As if on cue, the ship's sensors detected multiple vessels emerging from hyperspace around them. Ships of various designs from a dozen different worlds. On Alara's wrist, a small device blinked steadily, broadcasting a signal that carried with it all the evidence of Vorax atrocities. "You see, Commander," Alara said as chaos erupted around them, "on Earth I had a reputation. They called me the Silent Hunter. I never failed a mission and I never left anyone behind." As the Vorax command ship came under fire from the assembled fleet of former victims, Supreme Commander Zix Farl realized the Imperium had made a grave miscalculation. They hadn't encountered just another primitive species to exploit. They had awakened something far more dangerous. Wrath Unleashed. 6 months after Hayes infiltrated the Vorax command ship, the galactic landscape had changed dramatically. The Vorax Imperium, once feared throughout known space, found itself fighting a multi-front war against a coalition of former victims. At the center of this coalition stood humanity, the newest spacefaring race, previously dismissed as primitive, now revealed to be dangerously adaptable. Alara Hayes, once presumed captured or killed, sat in the war room of the Earth defense vessel Nemesis. After her transmission of Vorax atrocities, she had been extracted by a daring Sarth commando team. Far from punishing her for insubordination, Earth Command had promoted her to admiral and given her command of their first true warship. The Vorax are falling back from the Riel sector, reported Captain Kimshar, her Sarth second-in-command. His scaled face remained impassive, but the rapid flicking of his inner eyelids betrayed his excitement. 3 more systems have declared for the coalition. Marcus Hayes, fully recovered and now serving as the coalition's chief xenobiologist, studied the tactical display. They're consolidating around their core worlds. As expected, Alara nodded. They've never faced organized resistance before. Their entire empire was built on isolating and intimidating individual worlds. The door to the war room hissed open, admitting Admiral Chen, who had become Earth's representative to the Coalition Council. His former disapproval of Alara's actions had transformed into grudging respect. "The Council has approved your strategy, Admiral Hayes," he announced. "Operation Sundering begins in 48 hours. Alara's plan was audacious. A simultaneous strike against every major Vorax shipyard using tactics specifically designed to exploit the weaknesses she had discovered during her infiltration. The goal wasn't to destroy the Vorax, but to break their capacity to wage war. "There's something else," Chen added, his expression grave. "We've intercepted communications from the Vorax High Council. They're planning something called Protocol Extinction for Earth." Marcus tensed. "A planet-killer weapon." "Worse," Chen replied. "A bioweapon designed to target human DNA specifically. They've been using the samples collected from their experiments to develop it." Alara's expression hardened. "Timeline. 2 weeks until deployment." "Then we move now," she decided. "Inform the coalition. Operation Sundering begins immediately." Across coalition space, vessels of a dozen different designs prepared for war. What made the coalition unique was not just its diversity but its strategy. Alara had convinced the member worlds not to build a standardized fleet but to embrace their differences, each species contributing what they did best. The Sarth provided armored destroyers, their reptilian patience perfect for holding defensive lines. The gaseous Navidians offered stealth technology that made ships virtually undetectable. The Kelter excelled at electronic warfare, their multiple-branched consciousness able to process battlefield information at unprecedented speeds. And humanity brought what it had always excelled at: adaptation and unpredictability. In the Vorax capital system, Supreme Counselor Zix Farl, promoted despite his failures due to his first-hand knowledge of humans, addressed the High Council. "Protocol Extinction is ready for deployment," he reported. "Once released into Earth's atmosphere, it will eliminate the human threat within days." "And the coalition," demanded the head counselor. "Without the humans driving them, the alliance will fragment. These species have centuries of distrust between them. They collaborate only out of fear and opportunity." A junior officer interrupted the meeting, his skin patterns displaying extreme agitation. "Counselor, coalition forces have entered the system. They've bypassed all our outer defenses." "Impossible," Zixfarl thought, "not again." The defensive grid had been specifically redesigned after the human infiltration. The tactical display activated, showing coalition ships appearing throughout the system, not at the jump points where defenses were concentrated, but in deep space, using modified human FTL drives that sacrificed efficiency for positional flexibility. "How many ships?" Zixfarl demanded. "Over 200, Counselor, and they're not just here. Reports are coming in from every major shipyard and installation. Simultaneous attacks across the Imperium." For the first time in his long career, Zixfarl felt fear crystallize in his core. The Vorax had ruled through the perception of invincibility. That perception was shattering. Aboard the Nemesis, Alara directed the assault on the capital system. The coalition fleet moved with coordinated precision, each species' ships fulfilling their specialized roles. "Kelter electronic warfare ships are in position," Captain Kimshar reported. "Vorax communications are compromised." "Navidian stealth squadrons have disabled their sensor arrays," added Lieutenant Commander Neri. a Navidian whose containment suit glowed softly with her excitement. Alara nodded. Begin Phase 2, target their shipyards and the Protocol Extinction Facility. The battle unfolded with brutal efficiency. The Coalition forces had spent months preparing, studying Vorax tactics and technologies. Every vulnerability Alara had discovered during her infiltration was exploited. Most critically, the Coalition had learned that the Vorax, for all their advancement, had grown complacent. They had not faced a serious military challenge in centuries. Their tactics were predictable, their commanders inflexible. In the midst of the chaos, a priority transmission reached the Nemesis. Admiral, the communications officer called, we've intercepted a Vorax evacuation shuttle launching from the research facility. Transponder identifies it as carrying Supreme Counselor Zix Farrell. Alara's eyes narrowed. The architect of protocol extinction. Bring that shuttle in. When Zix Farrell was brought to the Nemesis's secure holding cell, he expected torture, revenge for what he had done to countless test subjects. Instead, he found Admiral Alara Hayes waiting calmly alongside her husband, one of his former specimens. I underestimated your species, Zix Farrell admitted, his skin pattern subdued in defeat. A common mistake, Alara replied, but not one you'll have the opportunity to repeat. You'll execute me then, as is your right as conqueror. Alara shook her head. That's where you're wrong again, Counselor. We're not conquerors, we're liberators. She activated a display showing him footage from across Vorax space. Coalition forces disabling military installations but protecting civilian infrastructure. Former subject species working alongside human engineers to convert bioweapon facilities into medical centers. We're not destroying your empire, Zix Farrell, we're transforming it. Why? The Vorax asked, genuinely confused. After what we did to your people, to your mate. Marcus Hayes stepped forward. Because that's the fundamental difference between us. You see diversity as something to exploit, we see it as something to celebrate. The Coalition isn't a temporary alliance, Alara explained. It's the beginning of something new, a galactic community where each species contributes its strengths rather than being subjugated for them. She leaned closer to the containment field. You'll stand trial for your crimes, Counselor, but your people will be offered membership in the Coalition as equals. As Zix Farrell was led away, Marcus turned to his wife. Do you think it will work? Generations of imperial rule can't be undone overnight. Alara watched through the viewport as Coalition ships secured the Vorax capital world. Already, representatives from a dozen species were landing to begin negotiations for a new galactic order. It won't be easy, she admitted. But if there's one thing humanity has learned through our own bloody history, it's that lasting peace comes not from victory but from reconciliation. Throughout the galaxy, the story spread. How the Vorax had kidnapped one human scientist, not realizing they had awakened a force beyond their comprehension. Not just in his wife, who had single-handedly exposed their atrocities, but in humanity itself, a species whose greatest strength was bringing others together. The galactic community would never forget the lesson. The most dangerous mistake in the universe is underestimating humans. They don't just fight for survival, they fight for something greater. And they never leave anyone behind, the Coalition expands. 1 year after the fall of the Vorax capital, the Galactic Coalition had grown from a desperate alliance of former victims into a thriving interstellar community. Representatives from 37 species now gathered in the Grand Assembly on Earth, a gesture that acknowledged humanity's pivotal role while placing the new Galactic Center far from former Vorax territory. Admiral Alara Hayes walked through the Assembly's crystalline halls, ironically constructed using repurposed Vorax technology. She wore a new uniform, midnight blue with silver accents representing all member species of the Coalition. The neural disruptor that had once been her weapon now served as a ceremonial sidearm, a reminder of how one person's actions could change the course of history. Nervous? Marcus asked, falling into step beside her. His position as Coalition Xenobiology Director had made him a key figure in facilitating communication between vastly different species. Not nervous, Alara replied, watching delegates from a dozen worlds conversing in the atrium. Just aware of how fragile this all is. The Vorax held power for millennia, we've barely begun. That's why today matters, Marcus reminded her. The Accords make it official, no single species can dominate the others, power must be shared. The Grand Assembly chamber hummed with activity as representatives settled into their positions. Some floated in atmospheric containment fields, others required specialized seating for their unique physiologies. Marcus took his place among the scientific delegation while Alara joined Earth's military contingent. Chancellor Rilter, a Kelter whose compound eyes allowed her to observe everyone simultaneously, called the assembly to order. Today we formalize what began in fire and pain, the unity of our peoples, she announced, her translator rendering her clicks and whistles into a dozen languages simultaneously. The Galactic Accords will establish our shared future. As the text of the Accords appeared on displays throughout the chamber, Alara noticed a commotion near the entrance. Admiral Chen approached quickly, his expression grave. "We have a situation," he whispered. "Deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual energy signatures at the edge of former Vorax territory. Unknown configuration, massive power output." "The Vorax?" Alara asked, keeping her voice low. "Impossible, we've accounted for their entire fleet. This is something else." First contact redux. The assembly fell silent as Chancellor Rilter received the urgent communication. The massive displays shifted from showing the Accord's text to a live feed from Coalition deep space monitors. A vessel unlike any they'd seen before had appeared at the edge of charted space. Unlike the crystalline aesthetic of Vorax ships, this craft seemed almost fluid, its hull rippling like mercury. It dwarfed even the largest Coalition vessels. "We're receiving a transmission," announced the communications officer, her voice tense. "Broadcasting on all frequencies, all languages." The image on the screen shifted to reveal a being that seemed to be composed of pure light, its form vaguely humanoid but constantly shifting. "Greetings, Young Alliance," the being's voice resonated in perfect standard, the Coalition's common language. "We are the Luminar. We have observed your victory over the Vorax Imperium with great interest." Murmurs swept through the assembly. The Vorax had claimed to be the dominant power in this region of space, yet here was a species they'd never mentioned. "I am Chancellor Rilter of the Galactic Coalition," the Kelter responded formally. "We welcome peaceful contact." "Peace?" the Luminar representative echoed. "An interesting concept from a coalition forged in war. The Vorax were our experiment, a test of this region's potential. Their failure is most informative." A chill ran through Alara. "Experiment," she whispered to Chen. "They're claiming the Vorax were their creation." "For millennia, we have seeded various species throughout this galaxy," the Luminar continued. "Some, like the Vorax, we imbued with advanced technology. Others, like humans, we left to develop naturally, all part of our greater purpose." Chancellor Rilter's compound eyes narrowed. "And what purpose might that be?" "Evolution requires pressure," the Luminar responded. "Competition drives advancement. Your coalition represents an unexpected outcome, cooperation instead of conquest. Most unusual." Alara felt Marcus's gaze on her from across the chamber. This wasn't first contact. This was judgment. "We have come to evaluate your worthiness," the Luminar announced. "The resources of this sector are valuable. The Vorax failed to utilize them properly. Perhaps your coalition will prove more efficient." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the assembly in stunned silence. The implication was clear. The Luminar viewed them as they had viewed the Vorax, as potential tools or obstacles, the Coalition's response. "They're testing us," Alara addressed the Emergency Council meeting later that day. Representatives from each member species gathered in a secure chamber beneath the Grand Assembly. "Just as they tested the Vorax. The difference is we know it's a test." "What do they want?" asked Sarth Ambassador T. Carl, his scales shifting color with agitation. "Resources they claim," Marcus replied, "but I suspect it's more complex. They're evaluating our response." "If they created the Vorax, their technology must be centuries beyond ours," Admiral Chen noted grimly. "Military confrontation would be suicide." Alara studied the holographic display showing the Luminar vessel, still hanging motionless at the edge of Coalition space. "We need more information. If they've been watching us for millennia, they must have observation posts, communication networks." "The former Vorax archives," realized Navidian Representative Pell, her containment suit pulsing with excitement. "If the Luminar created them, there might be records the Vorax themselves didn't fully understand." "A diplomatic mission," suggested Chancellor Rilter. "Show them our peaceful intentions while we gather intelligence." Alara shook her head. "They already know our peaceful intentions. That's not what they're testing. she stood, addressing the entire council. The Vorax ruled through fear and isolation. The Luminar gave them advanced technology, then watched them conquer and experiment on other species. That was their test, and the Vorax failed. Because you stopped them, T-Carl noted. No, Ilara corrected. Because the Vorax chose domination when given power. The Luminar want to see what we'll do differently. So we show them, Marcus concluded. We demonstrate what makes the coalition unique. The Luminar challenge. 3 days later, a small coalition delegation approached the Luminar vessel. The Nemesis, now configured as a diplomatic vessel, led a formation representing each major coalition species. Ilara commanded, with Marcus and Chancellor Rilter accompanying her. They're scanning us, reported Lieutenant Commander Neri as they approached. Extensive energy readings penetrating all shields. Let them look, Ilara replied calmly. We have nothing to hide. The interior of the Luminar vessel defied conventional physics. Corridors seemed to extend infinitely in all directions, yet they reached the central chamber within moments of boarding. The being of light awaited them, now accompanied by others of its kind. You approach directly, observed the Luminar spokesperson. The Vorax would have attempted deception or displays of strength. We seek understanding, Chancellor Rilter replied. Your arrival interrupts a historic moment for our peoples. Yes, your coalition, the light being's tone was unmistakably condescending. A temporary alliance born of convenience. When the threat passes, so too will your unity. Ilara stepped forward. You're wrong. Our unity was forged in resistance to oppression, but it continues because we've discovered strength in our differences. Each species contributes unique perspectives and abilities. Pretty words, the Luminar dismissed. Yet humans lead your military, the Kelter your government, the strong always dominate. We serve where our abilities are most valuable, Marcus explained. Leadership rotates, power is distributed. Chambers suddenly shifted, walls becoming transparent to reveal the vastness of space beyond. Holographic displays appeared, showing dozens of worlds across coalition territory. We have observed your kind for eons, the Luminar stated. You fight, you conquer, you destroy. The Vorax simply did it more efficiently with the tools we provided. When your coalition fragments, as it inevitably will, we shall select the most promising species to elevate. To become your next experiment, Ilara challenged. Another tool like the Vorax. The Luminar seemed to pulse brighter. The Vorax served their purpose. They identified potentially valuable species through their experiments, including humans. Your remarkable adaptability was confirmed through their research. Research, Marcus's voice sharpened. You mean torture, experimentation without consent. Necessary evaluation, the Luminar corrected, as is this. The holographic displays shifted again, showing a small frontier colony on the edge of coalition space. A Sarth agricultural settlement with approximately 3,000 inhabitants. A simple challenge, announced the Luminar. This colony faces imminent destruction from a cosmic event, a microsingularity on collision course. We can divert it for a price. What price? Chancellor Rilter asked cautiously. Control of the Earth system for 1,000 years. Humans would relocate to colony worlds, a small sacrifice to save thousands. The delegation exchanged glances. The Luminar were obviously manufacturing this crisis, but the threat was real nonetheless. This is your test, Ilara asked, her voice level. Sacrifice one species to save another. A rational calculation, the Luminar responded. The coalition makes such decisions daily, resource allocation, defense priorities. Some worlds receive protection while others remain vulnerable. Ilara stepped closer to the being of light. We reject your premise. The coalition doesn't sacrifice one people to save another. Then the Sarth colony dies. No, Marcus interrupted. It won't, because while you've been keeping us here, coalition ships are already evacuating the settlement. The holographic displays confirmed his words. Coalition vessels from half a dozen species were landing at the colony, swiftly organizing an evacuation. Impossible, the Luminar spokesperson flickered. We only just revealed the threat. But you revealed your interest in that colony when your probe scanned it yesterday, Ilara explained. Anything that interests you concerned us, so we took precautions. The Luminar conferred among themselves in pulses of light too rapid to interpret. You anticipated our test, the spokesperson finally acknowledged. Impressive if futile, the microsingularity remains. Yes, Alara agreed. And our scientists have been studying your technology since you arrived. The energy signature of your ship suggests you generate controlled singularities as a power source. The one threatening the colony shares that signature. You created the threat, Chancellor Rilter stated. You can remove it. And if we choose not to, challenged the Luminar. Alara's expression hardened. Then we would be forced to consider you an imminent threat to the coalition. We survived the Vorax through unity. We will face you the same way. Unity is triumph. The standoff lasted several tense moments before the Luminar spokesperson pulsed brightly. Most unexpected, it admitted. The Vorax would have sacrificed the colony without hesitation or attempted to attack us directly. The being seemed to expand, filling more of the chamber with its luminescence. Perhaps we have underestimated the potential of cooperation. The holographic displays shifted again, showing the microsingularity dissipating harmlessly. You have passed this evaluation, the Luminar announced, the first species ever to do so. We are not here to be evaluated, Alara stated firmly. The coalition represents free peoples who determine their own destiny. Freedom is an illusion in an uncaring cosmos, the Luminar countered. But your coalition demonstrates potential. We will observe your further development from a distance. And if we prefer you not observe us at all, Marcus asked pointedly. The light being pulsed with what might have been amusement. That choice is not available to you. However, we will respect your territorial boundaries for now. Continue your coalition experiment. We shall return when you have matured further. The meeting concluded abruptly as the delegation found themselves back aboard the Nemesis, the Luminar ship already moving away at impossible speed. That wasn't the end, Alara observed as they watched it disappear, just the beginning. We knew we weren't alone in the universe, Marcus replied. We just didn't realize we were being watched quite so closely. Chancellor Rilter's compound eyes reflected the stars. The Luminar didn't create the Vorax, she noted. They merely gave them technology and watched what they did with it. The true test was always about choices. Alara nodded. And we've made ours. The Galactic Accords will proceed, but now with knowledge of what's at stake. If the Luminar or others like them return, they'll find a coalition stronger and more united than ever. As the Nemesis returned to Earth, news of the Luminar encounter spread throughout coalition space. Many feared this new, vastly powerful presence, but others saw opportunity, confirmation that their path of cooperation rather than conquest was the right one. The Galactic Accords were ratified unanimously the following day, establishing the coalition as a permanent interstellar union. A special provision, inspired by the Luminar encounter, established protocols for unified response to external threats. In the Grand Assembly's closing ceremony, Alara addressed the gathered representatives. The stars are not empty and we are not alone, she began. The Vorax thought power came from domination. The Luminar believe it comes from manipulation. But we have discovered a different truth, that our greatest strength lies in our differences, in the unique perspectives and abilities each species brings to our shared future. She gestured to the assembly, to the diverse beings who had once been enemies or strangers. The Luminar have watched us for millennia, waiting to see what we would become. Today we show them and ourselves the answer. We are the coalition, we face the future together, and we will never ever leave anyone behind. Throughout coalition space, beings of 1,000 different forms listened to her words, translated into hundreds of languages. The message resonated across barriers of biology and culture, a promise and a challenge. Unity is not uniformity, diversity is not division, and in the vastness of space there is room for all.